I'd like to know from you what conversations you've had with President Trump about the indictment of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United States.
Did you see that when you saw that post? Did you talk to anybody in the White House?
I am not going to discuss any conversations I have, nor any investigations, nor
you are unwilling
any
to tell this
pending
committee
cases.
about conversations with the White House. Will you join me in supporting that kind of reform?
Senator Blumenthal, I find it so interesting that you didn't bring any of this up during President Biden's administration when he was doing everything to protect Hunter Biden, his son. And if I can finish answering the question, I'm not going to yell over you. I'm not going to get in the gutter with you. But information that the Biden administration told them not to investigate Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine. I'm not going to be lectured to you about integrity by someone who lied about being in the military just to be elected a senator.
Blumenthal doesn't start by nitpicking policy. He goes straight to the heart of the matter, something foundational, something the average American doesn't have to be a lawyer to grasp. In a democracy, prosecutors are not supposed to be ordered around by a president seeking revenge or political gain. That's the entire point of an independent justice system. Is the Department of Justice still operating as an independent institution, or has it been turned into a political weapon?
Just so the American people understand, this issue of weaponization of justice goes to the core of the integrity of our criminal justice system. And I think we can all agree that no individual, no group should be targeted simply because they are a political opponent or because the President of the United States has some personal animosity toward them. You've just said that President Trump is the most transparent president in history, tragically and chillingly. You may be right when it comes to criminal justice, because far from ending weaponization of justice, I would submit, Madam Attorney General, that President Trump has embodied it. And we have a record. It is a public record of his express instructions that certain individuals be investigated. The Attorney General of New York, Tish James, my colleague Adam Schiff, the former CISA director, Chris Krebs, the DHS former chief of staff, Miles Taylor. There's a list. And he has been transparent. In fact, 5 days before the indictment of James Comey, he put this post up as instructions to you. He didn't mince words. He was very open and public that you should indict James Comey and others because they are guilty as hell. No more delay now. 5 days before you indicted, or grand jury at your instructions indicted James Comey. I'd like to know from you what conversations you've had with President Trump about the indictment of James Comey.
Senator, I am not going to discuss any conversations I have or have not had with the President of the United
States.
See that you're an attorney, you have a law degree, and you know that I'm not going to do that. I also find it fascinating, because I'll keep fighting to ensure that law enforcement and the judicial process move forward without political interference. No one is above the law, not even the president. That's a quote from you, Senator Blumenthal, in 2017.
Well, let me ask you then, when you saw that
No
post,
one is above the law. That was your quote.
When you saw that post, did you talk to anybody in the White House?
I am not going to discuss any conversations I have, nor any investigations, nor
you are unwilling
any
to tell
pending
this committee
cases.
about conversations with the White House
and if I may
James
continue,
Comey's indictment.
And if I may
Let me
continue,
show you a picture.
James Comey was indicted by one of the most liberal grand juries in the United States.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there were a lot of people there that night. That's a great
picture. Was
picture.
James Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night. I think the entire cabinet was there.
Did you discuss James Comey with the President of the United States? He was sitting just to your left.
Well, 2 seats down, yes. 2 seats down. And I am not going to discuss any conversations I've had or not have with the President of the United States.
Because the American public is entitled to know Madam Attorney General.
The entire cabinet was at that dinner,
whether you took instructions from President Trump after he told you very directly to indict James Comey, which is weaponization of the Department of Justice.
Oh,
I want to agree with my colleague, Senator Hawley, that weaponization of our justice system must end. That's the reason that I propose legislation, and I challenge him and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to join me in legislation that would create a statutory right of action for people who are selectively or maliciously prosecuted for political reasons. It would codify your manual, the Department of Justice manual, on political prohibitions against political considerations in charging decisions and prohibit the White House from intervening, President Trump and any other president from intervening in charging decisions. It would make reforms to the grand jury process. You've just said this grand jury was liberal. We should reform the grand jury process to ensure that the government is not abusing its power and authority, and it will require transparency and accountability reforms at DOJ so that you will and other attorneys general be held accountable for these kinds of decisions. Will you join me in supporting that kind of reform?
Senator Blumenthal, I find it so interesting that you didn't bring any of this up during President Biden's administration when he was doing everything to protect Hunter Biden, his son. And I think you just saw what Director Radcliffe just released.
You know, this is an effort to be positive.
If I can finish answering the question, I'm not going to yell over you. I'm not going to get in the gutter with you. But information that the Biden administration told them not to investigate Hunter Biden's involvement with Ukraine. I'm not going to be lectured to you about integrity by someone who lied about being in the military just to be elected a senator.
The merger between Hewlett-Packard Enterprises and Juniper Network was settled. You authorized the settlement. It was the subject of a lawsuit to block it. The settlement produced virtually no concessions from Hewlett-Packard. It was a settlement that prompted criticism from the Antitrust Division. Did you authorize that settlement yourself?
As I stated earlier, Gail Slater is doing an incredible job running the antitrust unit. And as I stated earlier, that is still a pending matter. As you should know with a law degree, that all mergers. If I can finish answering the question.
I'm going to,
if I could finish. No, I'm answering the question.
Because my time is limited.
No, well then don't ask me a question. So,
let me just ask you,
as I said, you have a law degree. You know that not only are mergers agreed upon, but they have to go to a court of law to be approved. It's a multi-step process. And as I said earlier, that is still pending. And I have full faith in Gail Slater.
And he lays out the record. Not rumors, not speculation, but Trump's own public posts demanding investigations and indictments of specific individuals he dislikes. From former CIA and DHS officials to state attorneys general and sitting members of Congress. It's not subtle. It's not coded. It's a president openly telling his attorney general who to target and when to indict. The most glaring example Blumenthal focuses on is James Comey. The timeline speaks for itself. Trump demands Comey's indictment publicly. 5 days later, it happens. And the night before the indictment, Bondi sits at a dinner with Trump 2 seats away. Blumenthal's question is simple. Did they discuss Comey? It's not a trap. It's accountability. If the Attorney General is making prosecutorial decisions based on a president's directives, that is the textbook definition of weaponization. But Bondi refuses to answer, over and over. She won't say whether she spoke to Trump, whether she discussed Comey, whether the White House pressured the DOJ. Every door is slammed shut with the same refrain. She will not discuss conversations with the president. That refusal speaks louder than anything she could have said. Blumenthal then pivots to something most people rarely hear about, grand jury reform. When he says Bondi claimed this particular grand jury was liberal, he's underscoring a huge point. If prosecutors think they can label a grand jury based on politics, what does that say about the neutrality of the system? Grand juries shouldn't be red or blue. They're supposed to evaluate evidence, not ideology. And when that concept starts to erode, public trust goes with it. He also introduces legislation that would give Americans the right to challenge politically motivated prosecutions in court, a real, structural check on abuse of power. Bondi dodges that too, instead bringing up Hunter Biden and attempting to redirect the entire conversation away from the allegations against her office. And then we see something even more revealing. When asked about controversial merger settlements, lobbying influence, and the firing of career officials who objected to questionable decisions, Bondi again refuses transparency. She won't talk about firings, she won't talk about conversations with lobbyists. She won't even confirm whether objections from her own antitrust experts were overridden. What viewers should take away from this exchange is not just the drama or the sparring. It's the structural issue at the center of it. The DOJ must be independent, not only in theory, but in practice. If an attorney general can't answer the most basic oversight questions, if they deflect by attacking senators personally rather than addressing the substance, if decisions appear to align more with the president's demands than with evidence and law, then the integrity of the justice system is at risk. Not for one party, not for one president, but for everyone. Because once justice becomes a tool of political power, it stops being justice at all. If you care about the rule of law, about fairness, about the simple idea that the government should not be used to punish political opponents, then this exchange matters, and it deserves your attention. If you're committed to learning more about how democracy actually functions and how fragile its guardrails can be, stay with this channel. Subscribe, share this video, and help keep these conversations alive. Our democracy is only as strong as the people willing to defend it.